I think that it is a very comprehensive, very deep, probing program, and it approaches the issue from a number of different vantage points, that when we understand how we work best around sexual assault or domestic violence or any other forms of violence against women in particular, we know that we need to have a very comprehensive approach. So the SHARP approach, what they're proposing and what they are in fact doing with their work, is comprehensive. It involves many different levels of prevention and intervention, and it involves both younger incoming members of the service as well as the supervisors and the highest leaders possible. And it takes a very integrated approach, both vertical and horizontal, if you will, to address the problem.
The SHARP program is a necessity within the Army. It's a program that addresses and tries to combat an issue that is no longer not only an Army issue, but it's a societal issue. And in order to get the message out to the soldiers, it's a necessity to have a program that spreads the message that this is wrong and that it's against Army values when someone commits sexual assault, of loyalty, of duty. And then it also promotes having the personal courage to intervene, take action, and motivate others to do the same. And so a program that is necessary, one that we've taken within the United States Army Europe, a very comprehensive, proactive approach to ensure that we have a sexual assault and sexual harassment prevention program, or the SHARP program, that reaches to the lowest levels of our ranks.
The SHARP program represents the best of social science. So really the success or failure of this is not based on the design of the program at this point, because that's doing wonderfully. It's based on execution. It's the degree to which officers and leaders across the Army will carry out every detail of the plan. If that happens, then this is a change that will absolutely work.
I think the Army has really taken the lead on putting together a really good program. I've heard people talk about how they're implementing it in different places around the world, and they're bringing in a lot of experts, and they're making it something that soldiers can really connect to. So that's very important.
My major contribution to this discussion within the Army is to really tell them or try and explain to them what they're taking on. Because when they're soldiers, 80,000 recruits every year come to them, they've already been ingrained in a lifelong education about sexuality and about what masculinity means and about what femininity means and about who can do what to whom and get away with it. And so that's what the Army is trying to kind of disrupt, is that cultural environment that people have grown up in for their entire lives. So it's really a momentous task that they've taken on. And what I want to really just contribute to that is that you've got to take into account how people come into the Army. You've got to take into account that cultural environment, that saturation in media messages, and that popular culture, in fact, gives precisely the opposite message and gives precisely the opposite values to what the SHARP program is really trying to do. And so you've really got to take into account what popular culture is doing as you think about your strategies for how to change things within the Army.
The issues of sexual violence and sexual harassment that SHARP focuses on are obviously bigger than just the Army. They're societal issues, but the fact that an organization, the Department of Defense, the Army, and the SHARP program within the Army is taking steps to be really systematic about approaching these issues is inspiring, and it's really a big development, a positive development. And again, some of the stuff that SHARP is doing in the Army is stuff that will not just stay in the Army. It'll go beyond, and other organizations, both within the DoD and in large-scale organizations in the civilian world, can learn from some of the stuff that SHARP and the Army has put in place.
The SHARP program is evolving and maturing into the kind of multifaceted sexual assault and harassment prevention program that is required. That you can't confront a problem as complex as this without many different facets of the program, everything from how we respond to victims to how we counter sexual harassment, how we deal with sexual assault cases when victims come forward. These are all facets that need to be addressed, and many more. And so as the program evolves and matures, it becomes more multifaceted and also deeper in the way it addresses the problem.
Critical. I mean, to the mission. It influences everybody in the Army. I was in Iraq from 2009, and you saw firsthand just the impact and problems that a sexual assault will have on a unit, the morale of the soldiers, the fear in others, so if it will happen to them. And so it's a crime that needs to be eliminated from our formations, and I'm glad to see that the SHARP program is addressing that.
I'm really impressed with it. I'm a civilian, and I work primarily, with civilians in higher ed, at least prior to working with the military. And the civilian world isn't nearly as accountable, and they're not as thoughtful and purposeful about how they're going to implement change. For example, a typical higher ed institution is going to bring in a single program to fight rape, as if the culture that has been in existence for hundreds of years, it just really needs to be stopped with one-hour program for 500 people at a time. And what I love about what the SHARP program is doing is that it understands that the initiative is comprehensive, that it's going to take time, that people are going to have to receive multiple interventions and hear multiple voices to get the message, and that it's also really trying to build ownership with program managers, so it's not just like, here's another outsider bringing a program in, it's you, the leader on the ground, you're taking the lead on this, and I think it's fantastic. It's been inspiring for all of us, I think, who are non-military to work with the Army on this program. We're very proud.
Well, the SHARP program is revolutionary. I was in the Army back in 1975, and we started dealing with the equal opportunity problem, the issues and everything addressing that. That was a huge culture change. Then we dealt with drunk driving. That was a huge culture change. Drugs in the military, culture change. Integrating females into the units from the WAC Corps to the regular Army, culture change. This is reminiscent of that. It's meeting the same goals and the same needs, and I think it's going to have a great, if not greater, impact, not just on sexual assault, but also sexual harassment, and really the way that we treat each other and the way we see each other, and to bring a bigger bond and a better bond amongst soldiers